Springfield's Talk 1041. Good midday, Wednesday, everyone. Midweek, rather, I should say. I am Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com. We're on YouTube as well. You can search us up, Springfield's Talk 1041, and find us there. The House yesterday voting to go ahead and urge or require that the Department of Justice release any and all files related to Epstein. Of course, redactions will take place. The Senate did unanimous vote. Trump is subsequent to encouraging Republicans to pass this, gone ahead and sign it, or he said he's going to go ahead and sign it. And I love the Democrats that prior to this, and even a question yesterday that was asked from an ABC News reporter, well, why don't you just go ahead and release it without congressional approval? And all of it's just amazing how quickly these people on the left go from no kings, go from Donald Trump doesn't respect separation of powers, Donald Trump thinks that he runs everything, to then in turn demanding that he just ignore Congress, he does whatever he wants to do. And it's just, of course, an exposure of the left and how there's no grounding in any sort of moral direction. There's no moral compass. The issue of separation of powers, the issues of no kings is something, again, only utilized when they feel it can be a weapon that makes their side look favorable. So Donald Trump, if he wants to issue some sort of executive order or use his executive discretion in terms of funding priorities, he is a king. He is a dictator, and he needs to be impeached and thrown out of office. But when they want their SNAP benefits released over the objection of Democrats, or they want to demand Epstein files be released without Congress approving it or voting, or even as voting's underway, they suddenly want Trump to be a king. They suddenly ask Trump, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just go ahead and do it? I mean, clearly there must be something that you're hiding if you don't just act as king and get out your king-like pen and sign some sort of king-like executive order. And it is one of the many spokes in the wheel of the true motivation that drives everything that the Democrat Party does. And that is simply destroy any opposition to move closer to a one-party system, like communist China, where, sure, there can be other parties, but you will never, if we have our way, have any say in a meaningful way. You will push for things we allow you to push for. You'll be frenemies, and you will say the things that maybe are in opposition that we allow you to. But ultimately, the goal here is one-party rule. And whatever the issue is, we may be on this side of it today, but tomorrow, if it suits us, we'll be on the opposite side of it. And the demands that Trump act like a king one day, while demanding the next day Trump be removed from office because he acts like a king, is just another one of those many examples. And yesterday, today, tomorrow, every day, of course, is going to be seen with this. So there was Jeffrey Epstein himself. We'll play some of this audio. We talked on Monday about the fact that an elected Democrat in Congress who represents the Virgin Islands was caught receiving and communicating via text message with Jeffrey Epstein on what questions to ask former attorney Michael Cohen, former Trump attorney Michael Cohen. This was after Cohen had turned against Trump, and so Democrats called him before Congress in order to try to, get him to say anything horrible about Donald Trump. And she got caught taking direction from Epstein on questions to ask. Now, when that comes up, Jeffrey Epstein's just a constituent. You've got Raskin, you've got Plaskett herself. The Democrats' position is Jeffrey Epstein. Well, he was just a constituent. I mean, what's the big deal? He's just another constituent. So when Donald Trump is seen in some random picture with Epstein from 20 years ago, he is an evil pedophile that clearly must have some sort of nefarious relationship with Donald Trump. Because, I mean, look at this picture. Look at this picture where they're at this huge party and they're there together and it's 20 years ago. So Jeffrey Epstein is the worst thing ever. But whenever a Democrat member in Congress is caught taking direction from him in an actual congressional hearing, well, he's just a constituent. That's all. What's the big deal? And we're not talking about excuse making 20 years ago. This is yesterday. Democrats are saying this. There was an attempt to remove her from that committee, and because of, I think, 6 Republicans, none of them are local around here, sided with the Democrats to protect her from being removed from that committee. I want to also, we're going to get latest news update. Hakeem Jeffries was on Morning Joe yesterday, and one of the big holdups, of course, the reason that Democrats had shut down the government for 30 however many days was because they wanted Republicans, and they still do, to help bail out Obamacare. The Democrats, several years ago, recognized that Obamacare is a complete and utter failure. Not only in terms of the actual product and service of medicine being provided to the American people, but financially. So like everything else in government, cost more, worse service. And so they passed a law forcing taxpayers to subsidize Obamacare, which, of course, is ironic because Obamacare was supposed to essentially, in this magical world, Obamacare was subsidizing all of us. Obamacare was going to make things cheaper for all of us. That was the whole point. And Democrats, subsequent to Obamacare, passing laws forcing us to subsidize Obamacare so Obamacare can, in turn, quote, subsidize us. Typical government approach. They, of course, also, I say of course, because this has been part of the discussion, but they put a sunset on it. It was temporary. That's what all of this running around falsely claiming that Republicans are trying to raise or triple, double premiums when it comes to health care. No, that is because Democrats, when they voted to force taxpayers to subsidize Obamacare, they put an expiration date on it. Their legislation. Hakeem Jeffries, leader in title of the Democrats in the House, was on Morning Joe and being asked about Obamacare. And Joe Scarborough pointed out what should be the obvious. And that is Obamacare this is a complete failure. All across the board. Obamacare has failed. It has failed in terms of goods and services. It has failed in terms of the financial. It has just made everything worse. Everything worse. Worse for hospitals, worse for doctors, worse for patients, worse for everybody. And he posed to Hakeem Jeffries, even with a renewed subsidizing on the backs of the American taxpayers, Obamacare, even if you get what you want, it's still broken. And it's still not saving money, but costing money. And I want to play Hakeem Jeffries' answer, and his answer really suggests that there's such an easy answer to what should be at least step one in fixing this problem. And it's a sign of not only the problems in Washington, D.C., but even just across America in terms of fixing this problem and how we just really aren't going to. I really firmly believe that in a real meaningful way. So we've got all that coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy fog in the morning, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 68. Tonight an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 55. For your Thursday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And taking a look at Friday, we'll see an 80% chance of showers with a high near 70.
Streaming live, ksgf.com. Hey, everyone, welcome. All right, let's play a little bit of audio. Now, I know the discussion of Obamacare, one, oftentimes isn't that exciting because, blech, but also when there's a sense that a particular issue is never going to get fixed, there is a sense of exhaustion in talking about it. Because it's like, what's the point in talking about this? Not going to get fixed anyhow. I do believe that there are people in the Republican Party in Congress, and Congressman Burleson would be one of them, that really do, and they really are going to push for some sort of meaningful change. I also believe something will happen. There will be some changes that are going to have a significant impact on the system in this country. The question is it going to make it better or worse? Because, if Democrats end up getting control again, they will do some, and we know what their answer is, do more of what we're doing. Because that is always the answer of the pro-government is the answer crowd. Whenever government makes things worse, whenever it makes things less effective, less efficient, and more expensive, the answer is, well, we just need to do more of what we're doing. That's the problem. We're not doing enough of it. And so as screwed as we are now, if the people who caused this problem in the first place, that being the Democrats, are able to get control of government to the capacity that they get to, do to us again what they did with Obamacare, but on top of Obamacare, boy, we think we have problems now. And unfortunately, there's a significant portion of the population that will clamor for them to do that. It is astonishing, one of the areas in which, still to this day, you ask people, which political party do you trust with health care, that you'll get either a majority or a plurality of Americans say Democrats, when the problem we have today is because of Democrats. It is Obamacare. That is the system we have. Here's something that needs to be understood. I think a lot of people think, oh, here is a big healthcare system, and then over here off to the side is Obamacare that only affects people that don't have private health insurance. Obamacare is only impacting to those who enroll in Obamacare. That is not true. Obamacare controls the health industry. Obamacare controls the insurance industry. Obamacare controls the hospitals, what it is doctors can and cannot do. Many of these decisions were made to control the entire system for the purposes of funding Obamacare. This is where we've become, we get used to these things, and so we forget. There was a period of time, you may recall, we were all outraged at the ridiculous nature of, men being forced to buy health insurance that covered hysterectomies or their pregnancies, these things. And this is before the, quote, transgender aspect of things. But the health insurance companies being told, you have to cover all of these different things here and there. And it was all finagling things so that on paper, Obamacare would be paid for. And this insane system that has caused the quickest decrease in quality of healthcare in this country that we've ever seen, the people who are fully responsible for it are the people that you will find in some polling. Most Americans say, yes, we want them to take charge of it again. The level, the suicidal tendencies we have in this country, unfortunately, we really do deserve what we get. Joe Scarborough, probably because Joe Scarborough would have been in Congress around the time of Obamacare. No, he may have been out by then. But when Obamacare was really being sold as a hot item, I don't know that Joe Scarborough was as far to the left as he is today. Probably irrelevant. I'm just trying to grapple with how it is that he seems to have some common sense when it comes to Obamacare, because he gets it. He seems to get at least the problem. And this is something he brought up yesterday with Hakeem Jeffries, as Democrats are running around talking about, we have to fix this system. We have to fix this system.
Leader Jeffries, even with those tax credits, premiums are exploding. And they'll be exploding under Obamacare. They'll be exploding in private health care. I mean, at what point are we going to sit down and figure out a systemic approach that actually is sustainable? Because we're not in it now. And again, even with those tax credits, the Obamacare premiums explode. Even worse, private healthcare premiums explode. Denials of coverage multiplying. A lot of those denials coming reportedly from AI. Like this system is failing the American people, and it's only going to get worse. What are we going to do?
All right, now I want to pause it here, and I'm going to play his answer. You'll notice that he fully, and this is important, he fully accepts the premise of what Joe Scarborough is saying here. And that is meaningful, and I'll explain why. But then he also gives the standard answer.
There's no doubt about that, Joe. We have a broken healthcare system, and unfortunately, Republicans have decided to break it even further. And this relates to things that go beyond their refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. In this year alone, what we've seen is Republicans enact the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. 14 million people are being denied their coverage as a result of the fact that they've passed this one big ugly bill. We see hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health centers closing all across the country. In this appropriations process that we're in right now, Republicans are trying to enact a $1.7 billion cut to the Centers for Disease Control. That will be the largest cut to the CDC in American history. And at the same time, they want to enact a historic cut to the National Institutes of Health. So this has been an all-out assault on the health care of the American people. And the system was already broken because of some of the dynamics that you've referenced. And so, yes, we've said we want to sit down and find a bipartisan path forward to actually address the Republican health care crisis and create a system that enables everyday Americans to be able to go see a doctor when they need one. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. That's the least that should be expected in the context of people confronting serious medical illnesses.
All right, now this is a lie salad. The reference there, the single largest tax cut in the history to Medicaid, that was getting illegal aliens off of the system, along with individuals who voluntarily, some of those numbers are estimates, those who are completely able to work, healthy people, the vast majority of which are men, like in their 30s, who just sit around and suck off the system. And the Republicans, in addition to saying illegal aliens, you know how it's illegal for you to get these benefits, we're going to make sure you don't get them any longer, and throwing in the people who are mooching off the system. Now, that is actually a good thing for the system because that means there's not less money for the people who it is actually intended to reach. That means there is more money for them. Because you are cutting out the people. You notice when they talk about what's the biggest cut, they're not taught, they don't talk about money that's being cut, they talk about the number of people. You know, they talk about, this many people being kicked off the system. Now, sometimes there will be, and this is the upside down world, that, there is a dollar amount attached to those people. Like, this many people, because of illegals and able-bodied individuals that will no longer be able to rely on taxpayers to do for them what they can do for themselves. That is going to save, $14 trillion or whatever. Well, Democrats call that a cut. That's not a cut. That's a savings. That is money that is going in places it is not supposed to be going. The referencing of this is the Republican system. Is this how dumb we are as an American people that Republicans passed something called Obamacare? The funny thing about Obamacare, that is shorthand for what the legislation actually was called or is called, and that's the Affordable Care Act. And what is so perfect about either the official name of the legislation versus the informal is, well, one, Obamacare makes it a little difficult to claim that it is Republican health care when it's called Obamacare. But on the other hand, calling it the Affordable Care Act is a little reminiscent of the Inflation Reduction Act that Republicans, or Democrats rather, famously passed, telling us that one of the great benefits, it was going to reduce inflation, hence the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, what happened? Of course, the opposite occurred. And that's just a repeat of the Affordable Care Act, which, of course, did not make care more affordable. It made it less affordable. Got a traffic update coming up in a moment. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I want a great homeloan.com. You got home loan needs, and you're thinking about refinancing maybe. That's a big one. I know this is very redundant, and it has been for some time, but everybody is just still a little uncertain about the economic future when it comes to long-term purchase. Now, they're talking about this 50-year loan thing. I'm not sure if you've heard about this, and I've noticed a lot of people that I'm friends with on Facebook, particularly that are, well, both in the home loan industry, but also realtors, about 50-year loans. And some are like, my God, that's awful. What's the point? You'll never pay it off. And others are like, no, that's not really how it works. It's still a good thing. You're still putting equity in a home, and you're still doing this. And Trump administration floating the idea of transferable loans. And there's just so many uncertainties at play about not just interest rates in the economy, but the whole home loan infrastructure that we've become so accustomed to. It leaves a lot of questions open, and it makes oftentimes people say, I'm going to wait until I get exactly what's going on. Reach out to the Carrickers and their team and tell them your thoughts, your concerns, and they'll get you set straight on the right path with all the information you need to make the best decision for yourself. I want a great homeloan.com, because you do.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see patchy fog in the morning, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 68. Tonight, an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 55. For your Thursday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And taking a look at Friday, we'll see an 80% chance of showers with a high near 70.
We're already seeing the beginnings of it, this other Obamacare battle. This is the reason that Democrats had the government shut down as long as they did, because they recognize that Obamacare is a complete disaster, and they want Republicans to once again force Americans to subsidize the system that ironically was supposed to subsidize us. That's just the hilarity of all of this. We just think of the absurdity of that for a moment. The whole point of Obamacare was, we were told, to make things better for us. It was to help us. It was to assist us. It was to give us that financial breathing room, yet it's the other way around. We are the ones who are being told we have to, give more of our tax dollars in order to keep that system afloat. That's backwards. That's not the way it's supposed to work. Joe Scarborough had Hakeem Jeffries on MSNBC Morning Joe, and Joe Scarborough noted that even if you get on the backs of taxpayers to subsidize once again this system, it's still it's still awful. And this is the thing, and he noted this as well. It's not just that Obamacare is not this separate little system that doesn't have an impact on anything else. It's like a cancer cell. You have cancer cells in your body. It's not like, oh, well, they're just doing their own thing. You don't have to worry about it because your body as a whole is just fine. No, it has a negative impact on your whole body. Obamacare affects the entire system, much of it by design. And Hakeem Jeffries agreed. And Democrats clearly are agreeing that their program is completely broken because they shut down the government in an effort to try to force Republicans to figure out a way to fix it. Now, if anyone talks about, okay, here's the easy first step. Just get rid of it altogether and go back to the way it was before. Well, you can't do that. Everyone agrees in Washington you can't do that, correct? What was it that when Republicans were still selling this idea of fixing it years ago, what did they always say? Repeal and replace. Repeal and replace. They went from vote for us, put us in charge, we'll repeal it, to no, repeal and replace. We'll put in some other form of government running things that will, so it's not an issue of whether government makes it better or worse. It's just a matter of who has the better way of having government run things. And so it became repeal and replace. Why not just repeal? As a starting point. What is the argument against that? Democrats themselves agree. It was better before Obamacare. This is the entire conversation that everybody agrees with the one thing. It is worse now than it was. I don't know any Democrat that is claiming, what are you talking about? No, it's better than it was before. We don't need to do anything to it whatsoever. It's Hakeem Jeffries just yesterday said, yes, the system is broken. Now, he called it the Republican system, which, of course, is ludicrous. So if we all agree it is worse now with Obamacare in place, why would you not just then get rid of it as step one? Because at least then, arguably, things would start to get better. Now, that doesn't mean that they would be the best. It doesn't mean that they would be perfect. It doesn't mean that things would be without problems. But we're all on the same page. It's worse now. So, logically, there's a very good chance that it will go back to the way it was before, which is better. This is such common sense. I should not be surprised that it escapes the brilliant minds who believe somehow government is the answer to this stuff. Just put it in any other context. Let's say that you are, you're in your car and it's overheating. And you pull it over, and so you tinker with it a little bit, and then you fire it back up, and it overheats even worse. Do you just keep driving? You say, oh, well, whatever I did, I need to do more of that. No, you immediately stop. Or let's say in the context of medicine. You have migraines, and so you go to the doctor. And the doctor's like, hey, there's this brand new miracle drug. It's going to make your migraines go away altogether. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. It's the greatest thing ever. I'm going to write you a prescription. So you get the prescription, you go. Pharmacist, oh, do you have any questions for the pharmacist? No, I don't. Very excited about this. Told this is going to be wonderful. It's going to make things better. And then you take it. And you start having bloody diarrhea. You start violently vomiting. You have seizures. And the only thing that you've done different is taking this medicine. Do you think, well, you know what? Maybe I should double the dosage. No, do you know what you do? You stop immediately. In fact, when it comes to most prescriptions or even over-the-counter stuff, when you look at all the potential side effects, what is it? It always says, if any of these things start to occur, stop immediately and call your doctor. You don't do more of it. Or you don't keep taking it until you discover some other new drug that is going to make your migraines go away. You stop. You go back to what you were doing when things were better. I don't know that there has ever been an easier solution, logically speaking, based off, again, I'm basing all of this off the fact that even Democrats agree that Obamacare has made things worse. Hakeem Jeffries, again, I can't stress this enough, not because I'm trying in my mind, okay, what would Democrats say if when it is accurately characterized that way? And, I suspect it's not because of the system. Hakeem Jeffries himself acknowledged to Joe Scarborough. Now, he didn't use the word Obamacare, but he said, yes, things are broken and they're much worse now because of the things that you mentioned, and what Joe Scarborough mentioned was Obamacare. Even if you want to tell yourself, well, we don't know that it's actually, the reason it got so much worse is because of Obamacare. It seems like it's worth a shot, doesn't it? I mean, you certainly can't argue things are better or the same. This is the madness. And listen, as angry as I might get, particularly at many of these Democrats for their dishonesty in this, and as angry as I may get at a number of elected Republicans at their cowardice in dealing with the truth on this, they're responding to what Americans want. Now, part of the reason they're responding to Americans is because Americans buy into the crap that gets fed. So it is cyclical. You have Democrats, lying, saying, we're the ones with the answers, trust us, we can make this free, we can make it better. And then, the American people buy. And then, they take the further step of saying, oh, and by the way, if we actually undo what is destroying all of this, it's going to make things worse, and you're going to be dying, and 12-year-old kids with leukemia are going to be kicked out into the street, and, all these insane worst case scenarios they throw out there, and so that then the American people in turn demand more of the same. It is a toxic relationship. And how it is that something that is such a simple first step, when, I mean, I just think of scenario after scenario after scenario. Let's try something different. Everyone agrees, yeah, no, that's worse. Well, what should we do? Stop doing it. Stop doing it. I mean, animals understand that concept. If an animal does something that causes them pain, they don't do it anymore. As human beings, we can't seem to get past that. We can't even get it that advanced. Got a text message. Obamacare nearly financially ruined my family. It forced us into a system that we couldn't afford, and then it fined us because we couldn't afford it. Yeah, it's government. We're here to help. You know, when Ronald Reagan said those are the scariest words in the world, I'm from the government, I'm here to help, he wasn't saying it just to be clever. He was saying it because of the real-life implications. I was having lunch last week, and the issue of health care was being discussed, and there was a gentleman there who had noted that, and I don't know what his career is or anything, but he was in a position to where they were doing sort of health care on their own instead of having, I guess, employer provided, because it was going to be the best option. $30,000 a year. And the kicker, and many of you, this will resonate. The kicker, they didn't even use it. Because of premiums, because of all these other areas, $30,000 a year. And do you know what they actually did do instead? Paid one of these other, outfits that are desperately trying to cling on to the free market system concept, which you have, you pay $200 a month, $300 a month, you get unlimited visits to your doctor, you get in the exact same day or the next day at the latest, you get labs, because they don't deal with they have gotten outside of the system as best as possible. And Obamacare has created this system and the reason that, so you may say, well, why pay the $30,000 a year for something you don't use? This is a catastrophic insurance trap that Obamacare has created, in which it made it illegal for you to own only catastrophic health insurance. You used to be able to do that, because we lived in a free country. And so what you had the ability to do was maybe pay $200 a month and have a great, awesome relationship with your actual doctor that you could pick up the phone, talk to at any time. Everything was a lot cheaper. You didn't have to deal with the hassles of health insurance. But what if I have a heart attack? What if I have a stroke? You could buy insurance to cover just those catastrophic things. And it was clearly much, much, much cheaper because the insurance companies weren't forced by government to cover absolutely everything else under the sun. Obamacare made that illegal. So essentially what you had in this one, and I'm in the same situation now in terms of this is why we go, of course we get provided. So much comes out of the paycheck. The employer picks each, but it's because of that same reason. For something catastrophic. It is a horrible, inhumane system that is absolutely awful. It is awful. And everyone agrees it's broken. Yet the concept of just until we figure out something, quote, better, stopping the problem, oh, no, we can't do that. You can't just get rid of it. Oh, yes, because it's serving everyone so well at this point. Now, one of the things that Trump has mentioned when it comes to health care is that, and I get why he's doing this, it's for messaging purposes. It is to, so what Democrats are wanting to do is force taxpayers to subsidize, quote, insurance companies, because that's what it does. That's what that money does. That way, insurance companies can then in turn not have to charge people as much. That's why you keep hearing about, well, your premiums are going to go up, and which incidentally, many of those programs are specifically through Obamacare. So what they're talking about are people whose premiums are $25 a month. It's not like what you and I, well, some of us anyhow, deal with, where it's $800 a month and it's going to go to $1,600. It's like 25 to 50, and some are higher, but just that little detail oftentimes gets left out. But that aside, so what Trump is saying is, no, instead of that money going to the insurance companies, it should go directly to the people, and then the people can choose what health insurance plans they want. They get to spend it. Well, the problem with that, again, is if you have a system set in place that essentially dictates to insurance companies what it is they are able to provide and not provide in terms of a good or service, then it's really not competition. You're not choosing what. That's what makes a free market system so great. That's why televisions and cell phones and all of these other devices, every year they launch new ones. Look how much better this one is than theirs over there, and look how much cheaper it is, because they're competing for you. Because government's not telling them, oh, well, if you have a TV, you have to have all of these options, to where they make essentially these requirements that result in every product that is offered exactly the same. Well, then, one, if you have to purchase it anyhow, and two, if the producers of the product have no ability to customize their product in a way that allows them to make it cheaper or give you different options based off your personal needs or improve it in certain capacities, then you don't improve the product. And so simply telling people, instead of subsidizing the insurance companies by giving these tax dollars directly to them, we're going to, give you your own tax dollars back so that you in turn can go buy health insurance, and that gives you a, quote, free choice. But a choice of what? Products that are so restricted in their customization that choice becomes irrelevant. That's not a choice. Got to get another traffic in. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, welcome everyone. Hope you're doing fantastic. Coming up in the spring, a lot of you are going to maybe be getting some tax refunds. It's always the time of year where there's that discussion. I know a lot of you, if you're getting a tax refund, you're doing it wrong. You know, you shouldn't allow the government to take more from you than they have to, because then they make money off it and so forth. I get that, understand it. But a lot of people see it as a way to kind of save some money aside and, I don't know, use it for family vacations or maybe to do a home improvement. Springtime's also the same time of the year that you're getting outside and you're really starting to enjoy the fresh air. I know we're getting ready to go into winter, and you're like, oh, outside and the leaves and everything and so forth. And so spring seems a long time away, but it'll be here, and you're going to feel like getting back outside. I know we used to be that way every single spring, but we didn't really have an outside that accommodated just being outside. When we first bought the house years and years ago, we had some lawn chairs and we'd sit out back. We had a lawn. We got a little lawn like a lot of people do, but we realized that is unused living space. And Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor Design for us a living space outdoors. And, ours is relatively simple. Got a beautiful smokeless fire pit, a lot of square footage that we can sit around, have plenty of room, not be crowded on it. Got room for my Traeger out there. Or you can have a full-blown kitchen. You can have one of those indoor-outdoor type situations with television and water features and sound installation. You name it, they can do it. They're premier landscaping and hardscaping in the area. It's hunterhardscapes.com is the website. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. After Mamdani first won the election, there was a video that was put out. It was 24, 48 hours later, saying, oh, I need more money. I need you to give me more money so that I can transition from my life as a spoiled rich kid to now running New York City. Now, generally, any sort of dollars that might be utilized for that sort of thing, they're your campaign funds. And Mamdani had, within 48 hours, put out a video asking for his donors. Because, let me back up to give it context. At one point during the campaign, he urged his voters, stop donating to me. The whole socialist, this isn't about money, and you need to keep your money. So when he won the election, and then 48 hours later is saying, hey, I know I asked you, literally in the video, to stop giving me money. I'm asking for it again. A lot of people, including myself, thought it was an AI-generated video in order to demonstrate the hypocrisy of socialism. But in fact, it turned out to be absolutely true. Now, there's a story regarding this. Fox News, New York City Mayor-elect Mamdani asked supporters for $4 million to fund his transition. Vows no wealthy donors. Now, listen, this is what makes it so much more perfect. Mamdani appealing to supporters for donations as he prepares to take office. Quote, I hope very soon not to have to ask you for money, but until then, I'm asking for you to go to transition2025.com. Give whatever you can, he said in a video posted just yesterday. I love how he's honest enough to say, I hope very soon I don't have to ask you for more money. He's not guaranteeing it. He's leaving the door open. The incoming mayor claimed the transition operations don't qualify for public matching funds, unlike campaign contributions, so he is going to his donors for the money. Now, he notes usually campaigns take that as an opportunity to rely on wealthy donors, but that's not us. The self-described socialist said we need to raise $4 million in total, so January 1st can be the day we start to deliver, not start to prepare. And he vows that he's not going to take money from the wealthy, only from the poor and middle class. I'm sorry, I thought the entire theme of socialism, the entire theme of Mamdani's campaign and his supporters is that wealthy millionaires and billionaires need to do more. That they're not paying enough in order to make government work for the people, that they need to pay their fair share. They chanted at a number of his events, including the one in which Governor Hochul was there endorsing him, tax the rich. And then hilariously, he's asking for money but won't take from the rich, only from the poor and the middle class. He is exempting the 1%ers from funding his transition. I swear, it is like a parody. It is as if someone said, let's come up with the perfect character to demonstrate how stupid people can be. Let's create someone who's never had a real job, who is like a trust fund baby. His family has this massive compound in Uganda. They're some of the wealthiest people around. His life up until recently pretty much revolved around his mommy giving him money to make music videos. He is the poster boy for the rich and affluent. So let's have someone like that, but have him run against the rich and affluent. And let's, at a time when his supporters are griping and complaining about, government having control over this and that because they cut off my SNAP benefits and that's awful, have him campaign on, I want to control even more of your lives. And then let's have him campaign against the rich and how the rich need to do more. They need to be more responsible. When it comes to paying for government to run, the rich need to pay more. They need to do their fair share. And then let's have him ask for donations to pay for his transition, but he exempts the millionaires and billionaires from the request. And his followers lap it up. Just like absolute fools. In fact, according to this article, that at the time of the video, it showed more than $1 million was raised with an average donation of $77.65 across 12,707 donors. So presumably, over 12,000 voters who voted for Mamdani because millionaires and billionaires don't do enough to fund government and government execution of programs, so forth, are subsidizing the millionaires and billionaires because Mamdani won't take their money. I mean, how can we give New York to Canada? I mean, can we just do it? Swap just maybe some areas of... We don't even have to swap. The level of just pure stupidity of these Democrats. It is absolutely astounding. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy fog in the morning, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 68. Tonight an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 55. For your Thursday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And taking a look at Friday, we'll see an 80% chance of showers with a high near 70.
A text message that came in saying, wait, campaign donations can get public matching. What does that mean? In New York, do tax dollars go to match private donations to a candidate? Is that true anywhere else? Because that seems really bad. It is bad, and I'm sure it does happen elsewhere. People on the left really like that concept. They love also the concept of forcing taxpayers to pay for all campaigns. All in the name of somehow that makes them more ethical, we're told. That's how to get dishonest politicians out of politics, is to say, we'll pay for your campaigns. Haven't quite figured out how that would work yet, but it is something that occurs in some of the more liberal areas of the country, New York being one of them. I don't know how far beyond that, but it is a concept that the left loves. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. All right. Yesterday, there was, of course, the vote took place, Epstein, and going to release all this information. And it really is one of the most frustrating messaging blunders that is coming out of the Trump administration. Pam Bondi, obviously, it is so, the reason it's so frustrating is because of the history of all of this and the fact that Democrats for years have been covering for Epstein. And and that somehow the messaging, and again, Bondi, it just really, really activated the ability of Democrats to somehow turn this upside down and make it sound like Trump is the one that's hiding something. When for years, Democrats have been covering this up. Years. And Trump, in his clunky way, and I understand what he's saying when he's talking about this being a hoax, and he's even referenced in the context of Republicans trying to hide that is a hoax. It's a lie. I don't even like the term hoax. It is a lie that Republicans are the ones who have been trying to cover this up, but that very clunky messaging makes it very, very easy to make it sound as if Trump is pretending as if the Epstein situation is a hoax that was just made up, when clearly everyone has known for years, including Trump, that this guy was doing things illegally. In fact, one of the videos circulating is from before Trump was even running for president against Hillary Clinton, talking about Epstein and what a piece of crap guy was and how he booted him out of Mar-a-Lago, and that Bill Clinton may, have some troubles because of his connections to Epstein. And it's just the messaging of this. If there's one total, complete messaging screw-up that to some degree continues today regarding this White House, this is the one. And it really, really, really frustrates me, as I know it does you as well. The House passes it. Senate, they just do a voice vote. They're like, yeah, which was smart. Just like, yes, just get this thing out of the way. We don't want to talk about this. Yes, just unanimous consent. Get the thing over to Trump. Trump, as of course, he's going to sign it. Now, if I were Trump, I'd make a huge ass deal of signing this thing. I would have as many survivors as possible there. I'd be surrounded by anyone and everyone that has been pushing for this. And I would make a huge thing out of it. I don't know how it's going to play. I don't know if it's going to just quietly be done without ceremony, but I would make a big deal out of it. Running parallel to this was a vote to remove Democrat Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett from which committee? House Intelligence Committee. And the reason for this is because it was revealed that during questioning of Michael Cohen, at the time former Trump attorney that turned against Trump, and so Democrats, here we got one. Let's bring him before Congress and get all sorts of, allegations against Trump. And while the questioning is going on during the committee hearing, she has Jeffrey Epstein texting her. She's asking Jeffrey Epstein, what about this? What about that? And at one point saying, hurry up, it's my turn to ask questions next. And he's directing her on what questions to ask. So you literally had a Democrat conspiring with this guy who's telling her, like some sort of lapdog, of which she's begging for the direction. This is in 2019. The guy's already, at this point, been convicted of, child prostitution solicitation. Everyone knows who this guy is at that point. Here she is. So she gets up to. By the way, it failed because there were, I think, 6 Republicans that joined with Democrats to protect her and keep her on. This wasn't even about kicking her out of Congress. Just saying, of all the people, got a lot of Democrats. Only a handful get to be on the House Intelligence Committee. Maybe she should not be on there. But Democrats, of course, all together said, nope, that's the best we have to offer, and a handful of Republicans agreed, and so she survived it. But here's some of what, and as usual, she's indignant about the fact that people are upset that she was taking direction from Epstein during the questioning.
And at the beginning of that hearing, the ranking member, Jim Jordan, had the disrespect to Elijah Cummings, may he rest in peace and his name be a memory, after not allowing Mr. Jordan to shut the committee hearing down. And I turned to Mr. Jordan and told him to have respect for the chair and to basically shut up. And that moment went viral. And I began to get innumerable texts from friends, from foes, from constituents about what was happening in that hearing. And I got a text from Jeffrey Epstein, who at the time was my constituent, who was not public knowledge at that time that he was under federal investigation, and who was sharing information with me. Now, I heard recently from someone that I was seeking advice from him. Let me tell you something. I don't need to get advice on how to question anybody from any individual.
All right, so a couple of things here. One, there's been 2 legal incidents, like large ones regarding Epstein. The one in which, of course, he'd end up hanging himself in a jail cell. But back in Florida, in which it was already well known, and I think he pled. He ended up pleading. It was allowed. There was a lot of scrutiny over how easily he got off regarding child rape charges. And he was sentenced to some jail time, of which he was allowed out to go to Epstein Island for 24 hours at a time. I mean, it's just, there were a significant amount of concern about the sweetheart deal he got, why he got it, and so forth. But that was before him texting her. So what they're trying to do here is use the timeline of him being held accountable more recently as if, well, that was the point in which we knew he was a child rapist. But that's not true. This was known well before that. So what she's claiming here is that she put the reason that she was getting messages from him is because she really put Jim Jordan in his place during the hearing, and so all of just random constituents were texting, and she's just texting them back. Now, we know by the text messages that absolutely is not what happened, because, we went through the text messages the other day. She was literally asking him at one point saying, I'm coming up next, hurry up, I need the answer to this question, and, what am I supposed to ask him, and so forth. Raskin also, this, just to back up her point, presented it as, this is just a lawmaker talking to constituents.
Well, they want to give them another headline, which is that they've arraigned a Democratic member for taking a phone call from her constituent, Jeffrey Epstein, in the middle of a hearing. And of course, I don't think there's any rule here against taking phone calls in a hearing.
So let's say that, if this just makes sense to you. Say you're watching some hearing and you see a member of Congress that you're not friends with. They're making it very clear that they're not friends or anything. He's just some random constituent, that's all. It's just like any lawmaker talking to a constituent. So let's say that you see some individual, maybe it's even somebody and you don't know this person personally, you don't have any connection to them, but you see that they say something during national hearings, and you think, oh, I'm going to text him. First off, do you have that member, their personal cell phone number? Do you think that's something that the average constituent's able to do, to have their personal cell phone number, and then whenever that ID pops up, that member of Congress, and then deciding to communicate back throughout the hearings? Do you think that you could do that? Do you have the ability to, just as a random constituent without any personal relationship with your member of Congress, do you think you'd be able to do that? Of course not. That's ludicrous. So, according to Democrats, if there is a picture from 30 years ago of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein at some event before they had their huge falling out. That's proof that Donald Trump is a pedophile, because Jeffrey Epstein is an awful person and no one would ever have any form of connection to him unless they were also an awful person. But when a Democrat is literally texting with Jeffrey Epstein after he has been held accountable, in quotes, for some of the child rape accusations, and is asking him what questions to ask a witness before congressional hearings, well, that's no big deal. That's not at all. Jeffrey Epstein's just a constituent then. She was just doing her duty as a person representing people in her district. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. The Foreman team is so awesome that they are actually expanding their team. So if you are in the HVAC industry and you are ready to make a change to a different company, this might be right up your alley. Russell is for sure hiring one new service tech, maybe two if you're the right fit. They are locally owned, family owned. They offer competitive wages. So if this is something that you are interested in learning more about, make sure that you reach out to Russell. And of course, for the rest of you, if you are needing the HVAC expertise from the Foreman Mechanical team, whether you need just a simple service repair, indoor air quality testing, or maybe this is the year that you upgrade your unit to something that's a little more energy efficient, the Foreman team, they have got you covered for all of your HVAC needs. Now, to schedule your appointment or to submit your application, you can do that at foremanmechanical.com. And of course, you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com. Springfield's Talk 104.1, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see patchy fog in the morning, otherwise partly sunny skies with a high near 68. Tonight an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 55. For your Thursday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And taking a look at Friday, we'll see an 80% chance of showers with a high near 70.
It's important to remember, or maybe for many of you know for the first time, that Epstein's legal troubles that came about a few years ago, so a lot of Democrats, because of their past relationship with Epstein, they try to pretend like, well, that was before we knew. And that is a position that is a lie. Because as far back, it was 2008 in which Epstein pled guilty to solicitation of prostitution and solicitation of a minor for the purposes of prostitution. This was someone who had already pled guilty to this stuff back in 2008. And it was a couple years prior to that. It was a middle school girl, 14 or 15, who had, with her mother, gone to police because she had been taken to Epstein Island, and, the Epstein Island things happened to her. And there ended up being six listed victims, but there was a lot of real funny stuff that went on with the FBI and an agreement not to prosecute as part of, because they worked out this sweetheart plea deal with them. And it included the promise by the FBI to not investigate his co-conspirators. So there were, we talk about all of the cover-up and in the context of the more recent high-level focus when it comes to his going to prison and so forth. This goes back to the early 2000s. And in 2008, serving jail time, but he was allowed out. He was allowed to get out for 24 hours at a time to fly to Epstein Island, where it was that he was, or where he pled, that is the location, that he pled guilty to committing these crimes, including child prostitution, and he was let out of jail to go visit that place. The whole thing to go, if you were to go back on the history, and for the sake of time, not going to do it now, the things that occurred that clearly had people in power protecting him back in 2008 regarding this, it is just astounding. Now, I mention that because I'm going to play some more audio here. This is 2023. Years after Epstein was convicted or pled guilty to crimes against children. And here is Plackett, the Democrat congresswoman, on C-SPAN when a caller calls in and asks her about Epstein.
Does Representative Plaskett have anything to say? Business Insider has reported on this as recently as, I believe, July of 2023, about meeting with Jeffrey Epstein in 2018 and receiving $30,000 of campaign contribution.
Jeffrey Epstein was a resident of the Virgin Islands. He wanted to make contributions to the Democratic Party. He asked for a contribution. He made contributions to my campaign. I do believe that he was a reprehensible person. And after finding out what he had done, I gave the money that he had contributed to my campaign to nonprofit organizations dealing with supporting women and children in my community.
Now, this is incidentally a get-out-of-jail-free card that is used, and it has been used both sides of the aisle, but Democrats, it's really a real get-out-of-jail-free card. Anytime they take money from someone that does something deplorable and those deplorable actions get exposed, they give the money to some cause. Generally, whatever cause is within the same category of the offense. And so, and again, this faux ignorance of, well, I didn't know at the time. Yeah, she did. She definitely did. In fact, she was part of a lawsuit at one point. She was named specifically in a lawsuit from some of the victims, claiming that she was part of the conspiracy to keep him protected. Knee deep with this guy. Here's James Comer revealing that Hakeem Jeffries also was doing what he could, at least, to curry favor with Epstein after he served time in 2008 for child prostitution.
Colleagues' coordination with Epstein. Another email shows Democrat fundraisers invited Epstein to an event or to meet privately with Hakeem Jeffries as part of their 2013 effort to win a majority. So Hakeem Jeffries' campaign solicited money from Jeffrey Epstein. That's what we found in the last document batch.
And Caitlin Collins, CNN, she gets a lot of grief, rightfully so, because of how dishonest she is oftentimes with her presentation in order to try and make Trump look bad. But she does at times press, to some degree, Democrats when they have backed themselves in a corner. And here she is asking Hakeem Jeffries about the connection he has had to Epstein. And again, that connection's well after Epstein served time in 2008 for child prostitution.
Be texting with Jeffrey Epstein 11 years after he pleaded guilty.
I had a conversation with Stacey Plaskett to discuss this issue because we've been focused today on making sure that there was a decisive vote as it related to the Epstein files and the release. I'm thankful for the work of Representative Massey, of Ro Khanna, but most importantly, the survivors.
Do you plan to talk to her about it?
I think that we successfully defeated a resolution that lacked any basis, was not credible, and was being brought by an individual who was trying to weaponize this issue to reinvigorate his own failed gubernatorial campaign in South Carolina. It was rejected on a bipartisan basis on the floor today. That's the end of the story.
Yeah, I was just asking if you personally believe messaging with Jeffrey Epstein, who is at that point a registered sex offender, is appropriate for a member of the House Democratic Caucus.
That's the third time you've asked me this question, and I'm going to give you the same exact answer. Our focus today is on making sure that the Jeffrey Epstein files were released. If you want to have a conversation with Stacey Plaskett about it, I'm sure she'd be willing to talk to you. It was an illegitimate effort to try to remove her from the House Committee on Intelligence, and that was defeated in a bipartisan way.
Well, let me ask you about you, because the White House has been highlighting an email that I'm sure you've seen today that Jeffrey Epstein got in 2013. They say it shows you were soliciting money and dinner from an Epstein. The email was not sent from you. It was sent from a political consulting firm called Dynamic SRG that says, "We are thrilled to announce we are working with Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Shoot us an email or give us a call if you would like to get involved." What's your response? Do you recall that email being sent to Jeffrey Epstein from that team?
Yeah, of course I have. Him, never met him, know nothing about him other than the extreme things that he's been convicted of doing. And that's why, I'm just strongly supportive of the effort, backing the survivors to make sure that everything can come out, whatever is in those Department of Justice files.
This whole thing is such a joke. And I don't mean what occurred with the victims, but all these people, particularly the Democrat apparatus, that for years not only worked overtime to protect Epstein, but then when he got the sweetheart deal in 2008, which, by the way, that could very well have bipartisan in terms of protecting him. But it has been very, very, very clear, ultimately, the people in which have been activating over years Operation Protect Epstein has been the Democrat Party. But even after he gets tagged and is registered as a sex offender after 2008, that apparatus is still seeking his influence, still seeking his money, still text messaging with Democrat members of Congress as they're seeking his advice on how to question Trump people. And to see those people, oh, well, I mean, we're just really interested in the victims. That's what we care about. So full of crap. Such dishonest, depraved human beings. Want to share with you what recently Doug had to say regarding Emily Johnson, and this I look at in the context of the importance of not only having a realtor, but having a great one by interviewing numerous ones before you make a final decision. We highly recommend Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. On our own, we found a home we wanted to purchase, which is a slightly different scenario. Later, we realized what a small piece of the buying experience finding the right house is. The seller was very emotionally attached to the house we were trying to purchase. This person was having a hard time with the negotiation process related to the request after the home inspection. The seller's realtor was also struggling to encourage her client to make decisions timely. That is where Emily really stepped up. She not only helped us, but she also helped advise the other realtor on how to help her client. I'm not sure the sale would have ever even been finalized without Emily's assistance. Now, of course, there are numerous different reasons that numerous different people have posted 5 stars and their reasons that they recommend Emily Johnson for home buying and home selling. But I thought that one was a really great example of why it's important to not only have a realtor, but to make sure you have the right one like Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. There is a potentially very interesting confrontation, legally speaking, that is quietly under the radar in the whole Jeffrey Epstein situation. And that is the fact that there have been subpoenas issued by Congress to testify about Epstein, and those 2 individuals are Bill and Hillary Clinton, which as of yet have not even acknowledged receipt of the subpoenas. James Comer is saying that they will get criminal referrals and they will get the Bannon treatment. House Oversight Committee Chairman, this is according to Just the News, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer on Tuesday said he would give former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton the same treatment Democrats gave Steve Bannon if they do not comply with congressional subpoenas to testify on their alleged ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Bannon, the context there, the reference there, House Democrats referred Bannon for prosecution after he failed to comply with a House January 6th subcommittee subpoena, and he would serve 4 months in prison for it. He was convicted on 2 counts of contempt of Congress for not showing up for the subpoena. 4 months in prison. Comer said the Clintons are 2 Democrats that his committee have not heard back from regarding the subpoenas for their testimony or their ties to Epstein, and the continued silence will be met with criminal referrals. He told Just the News, we expect to hear from Bill and Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump answered questions for years about Jeffrey Epstein. Every day he gets asked questions about Epstein, and he answers them in front of the American people. We've subpoenaed Republicans and Democrats. Other Democrats have sent letters saying they knew nothing about Epstein, which would hold in court if something ever comes out that they did know something. Then they've committed perjury there. But the Clintons have never even responded. They're the one group in this investigation that's never had to answer questions in front of a credible reporter, and they've never certainly answered questions from attorneys or members of Congress. So we expect the Clintons to come in, or I expect the Clintons to be met with the same fate that Bannon and Peter Navarro were met with when the Democrats were in control. And that is exactly what should happen. Republicans for the longest time complained, rightfully so, about this dual system of justice, but oftentimes it was because Republicans, when they were in charge, would not hold Democrats to the same standards that Democrats would hold Republicans to. And so it wasn't necessarily because of anything in a vacuum proactively Democrats did, but it was the fact that Republicans would not do it in kind. And if Steve Bannon can go to prison because he did not comply with a congressional subpoena, then Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton should as well. And perhaps the more important question is, what do they have to hide? Is that not the entire theme that we've been hearing from the media and the Democrats regarding Trump's dismissal of the allegations that, he had something to do with Epstein, and so he saw it as irrelevant and said Republicans need to focus on other things? They characterize that as Trump hiding something, and clearly you're hiding something for a reason. Well, what are the Clintons hiding? Why is it Bill Clinton, that we know for a fact visited Epstein Island, 17, 18, however many times? Not to mention, we also know that Bill Clinton liked him young. That's not really in dispute. So what does he have to hide? And what does Hillary have to hide? I hope they don't let this go. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Outgoing New York City Mayor Eric Adams sending a warning to the Jewish residents of New York. They need to keep a watchful eye and be a bit nervous as Democrat Zoran Mamdani succeeds him, noting, "If I was a Jewish New Yorker with children, I would be concerned right now," he said in an interview with The Forward. Quote, "I think this is a period where the Jewish people of New York City need to be very conscious that there is a level of global hostility towards the Jewish community. 2024 anti-Semitic incidents were up 54% in New York City's so-called hate crimes." Adams saying, "I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend as though everything is fine." And I would argue that in, one of the 54% increase was the voting for Mamdani. You want to send a message to Jews in New York that they aren't welcome and wanted? You elect a guy who is opposed to Hamas being disarmed. You pick a guy that has been supportive of global jihad. You pick a guy who, for a period of time, because his rich mommy gave him money, he was making videos and writing rap songs, one that praised specific terrorists. And it's just a remarkable thing to see in the city of New York, and New York, which has been so enriched by the Jewish culture, elect someone that is so unapologetically anti-Semitic. I mean, New York City. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Someone texted in a question regarding the next Heroes Breakfast, and I usually don't talk about whether it is a Heroes Breakfast or a happy hour unless it is the week it's actually going to happen, because people kind of tune in and out, and if they hear me say, Heroes Breakfast, if I'm talking about 2 weeks from now, then they think, oh, I heard it must be this Friday, and so I just limit until the week of those conversations in order to avoid any potential confusion or misunderstanding what I'm saying. That being said, I did get a text asking, hey, is Heroes Breakfast going to be on Black Friday? And this is a great question, and it's one that could very well be based off of what we have done in the past, and that is in the past, we do not... we don't have Heroes Breakfast on Black Friday. And that is because we have Thanksgiving off, and then we just always choose to take the day after off, don't we?
That is correct.
That's the way we've done it. We've always done it that way. I mean, honestly, it's because for us, Thanksgiving is a paid holiday, and then I use a vacation day, and you take a 1-day holiday, and then the weekend, all of a sudden you got a 4-day weekend. And so it's just, we're really capitalizing off that opportunity. That, however, is generally the last Friday of the month, which is when we generally do have the Heroes Breakfast. And so like we have done years past, instead of the Heroes Breakfast being on Black Friday, it will be the first Friday in December. So that will be December 5th. December 5th. And this is every year. In fact, I note it's like an eclipse that doesn't come along very often, where we have a Heroes Breakfast the same day as a happy hour, because generally they're one after the other. But the month of December is a little bit different, so you can make a note of that, and hopefully it won't be too confusing. But I understand 100%. You get accustomed to going a certain day of the month that some people may show up and be like, hey, and oh, sorry, no, it's going to be next Friday. So the Heroes Breakfast that would normally be what would fall on Black Friday, this is going to be December 5th instead. So it'll be a week delayed. Okay. I think that's as concise as I can make it.
Good job.
Thank you very much. I worked very hard on it. But great question. Planning ahead there. And I, in fact, had a voicemail a couple of weeks ago. I returned a call to someone who was asking, now, what's the plan for November and December when it comes to Heroes?
I know. Yeah, I've had quite a few of those as well. But yes, December 5th.
Yes, December 12/5. All right, we've got weather traffic coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy fog in the morning, otherwise partly sunny skies with a high near 68. Tonight, an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 55. For your Thursday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And taking a look at Friday, we'll see an 80% chance of showers with a high near 70.
Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Ozarks Elder Law. Talk a lot about the nursing homes, help for veterans, talk a lot about just the standard, we're all going to die. Make sure that you have planned that out so you don't leave some extra burdens and potentially conflict with family. But oftentimes, sometimes those with special needs don't get thought of as, a person that is going to need caretaking. And if you are someone that has a special needs person in your family that you are the caretaker for, they're a legal adult, perhaps 18, 19, 20, 23 or whatever, and you're of an age that you're not worried about, you're like, I'm healthy and I'm 40 years old. Something happens unexpectedly and you don't have in paper, legally locked down solid whom it is that will be taking care of that loved one, then the government's going to make a decision on that. And most of you recognize that the judgment of folks in government isn't necessarily on point and in line with what you and your family would want. And so I recommend you reach out if that's a scenario that you are in and you think, well, I never really thought of that before. Or again, most people who are healthy, middle-aged, just don't think that that's something they're going to have to deal with. Reach out to Ozarks Elder Law, Lori Rook, the Ladies in White, all of those teams, 10 area locations will definitely be able to help you make sure that that is set up so that person with special needs is not left in the hands of the government should something unexpected happen. OzarksElderLaw.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. One of the great aggravations I have, well, there's a lot of them, but so one of the many is not the concept of taxes, get it, understand it, but how I believe oftentimes nefarious, but if I just want to be generous, just how organically we get lulled into not realizing how many taxes we actually pay. Sometimes because they're called fees. Sometimes they're just automatically there and we don't even know it. Or they get raised, but, well, your taxes didn't actually get raised. It was just an evaluation of your property did. And so all these areas in which we pay taxes. And I've talked for, well, just this particular issue for a while. And rarely does it seem as if in a state run by Republicans that I always grew up being told less taxes, smaller government, yet it just seems like there's always tax increases, without taxes going away. Though every so often it does come up, I'll acknowledge, we have seen instances. And an elected member in Missouri, Representative Bob Titus, is someone who also apparently not only has some degree of aggravation at the whole tax issue, but wants to do something about it. And so because this is an issue that I really appreciate seeing somebody do something meaningful on, I wanted you to come in and talk a bit about what it is that you are looking to do. So welcome. I think it's the first time we've had you in.
Yes,
and so,
thank you.
So it's great. You've already done your Thanksgiving.
Yes,
because I had mentioned, I was like, because I knew that you had a pretty large family, and so I assumed you had a large Thanksgiving, but you're like, oh yeah, we already did ours.
Yeah, no, we had like 36 people at the house, so it was a great time. And the story behind that is 7 of my children are married, and so we've always kind of taken a back seat to the in-laws, the spouses, and let their families enjoy Thanksgiving Day. So our celebration has been relegated to alternative weekends. And
but you know what? That's what it's not the date on the calendar. It's that everybody gets together.
No, exactly. The fellowship,
sometimes
the joy.
People forget that.
Absolutely, really rich opportunity to get together. But yeah. This year we got it in there early. So
how many turkeys does it take to feed that many people?
I used one turkey.
One?
And, when you celebrate that in the end of October, there's not a lot of turkeys to choose from.
And the pricing's a little higher.
True.
Well, it depends. I wait till the day before sometimes.
Right.
Like, I hope that thaws in time.
But, we had so much food, though. We, had hams and all kinds of things. It was a really rich experience.
For a lot of people, even people listen to this station may not really know exactly like who their rep is. They may what area do you cover?
Okay, so I represent Western Christian County, and that starts in Nixa, and it goes out west towards Clever, in Billings, and I actually live close to the Billings area.
All right, so tell us about this, because this is appears to be somewhat of a new concept. Maybe not absolutely original, but it's nothing I've heard of in terms of an attempt to get it done in Missouri.
Okay. So this will be a House joint resolution, and I'm calling it the no tax should have an eternal life. And none of us do. Why should taxes?
Yeah.
And, taxes are a necessary evil, but it seems like we keep doubling down on the evil part of it. And so, it's time to basically put a shelf life on taxes. And, what happens is, government imposes new taxes, and these taxes just stay on the books forever and ever and ever. And you never see initiatives to try to take a tax off the books. The money, even when the purpose for the tax is obsolete or, out of date or onerous, they just stay there, and the money gets rerouted to some other government operation.
So with this, okay. So this, first off, what taxes would this cover?
All taxes within the state of Missouri,
Okay.
outside of federal taxes. We have no jurisdiction over those.
So would this even apply in Springfield? Springfield loves to raise taxes, although the convention center, that one was an anomaly, the vote on that. But does that also apply then any municipality?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so let's say a tax gets voted in and then it would automatically expire after a certain amount of time?
Yeah, and we're going to give it a generation.
Okay.
25 years is the period of time. So,
Okay.
So we're not, we don't need the legislature to get bogged down
Sure,
in
every year.
reconsideration. We don't want to plug up the ballots with these things too frequently.
Well, and I would argue that if a 25-year period, some people argue, well, that's still too burdensome, then that means there's too many taxes.
No, I agree.
If within a
I agree.
25-year span it becomes too burdensome to get people to reestablish taxes, then there's too many of them.
No, I agree. And they just pile up and up and up. And if we don't have a reasonable and periodic way to reconsider taxes, then it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Clearly, a lot of cities are not going to like this.
No, they won't.
Because obviously, government loves their taxes. They can't do without. We can, of course, with our paychecks, we can do without more, but they can never do without less. Has this gotten to the point where you've started getting any sort of pushback, or
No.
is it so okay? So
No.
it's early on, and
Right, it is.
Huh. One of the things that this is an interesting concept, because I have long felt that the quote sunsetting of taxes is done as almost a bait and switch. And now this is different because this would automatically apply to all of them. But one of the things that I always disliked about the sunset tax, whenever a city's like, oh no, it'll sunset in 5 years, don't worry about it, it'll go away. But when that 5 years comes up, they're like, well, you can't let go of this. We have to have this.
Right.
If we don't have this, then firefighters are going to die and children are going to starve. And, they tell you all these horrible things that are going to happen. And then they're like, but in order to stop that from happening, you don't have to raise everything. This isn't a tax. They tell you it's not a tax increase to renew it.
You're right.
And so one of the things this is an awesome concept. After you get this done for everyone, I would love to see legislation that says if a tax sunsets, of course, I guess this would, but okay, I'm thinking out loud here. You got to forgive me.
Sure.
Because I could still see some municipalities, in order to sell it, because they know that's what people love, that idea that, we'll still sunset this within 5 years, okay, whatever the local tax may be, that it cannot go back on the ballot for a vote until a year after it has expired, because then they can't claim it's not a tax increase.
Right.
And it drives me nuts when they do that. And then that would force them to not be allowed to mislead people in that way. But that's for another time.
One of the provisions of this bill will be to exclude the phrase, this is not a tax increase. And we see that especially with bond issues, where
all the time,
a bond issue is due to expire. and the taxing entity just puts it back on the ballot and said this is not a tax increase. Well, guess what? People's taxes would have gone down if the thing had expired like it was supposed to. So it's misleading.
It's so manipulative. I mean, and from, like I said, out of the gate, they know people love the idea of it. Oh, well, it's just temporary. It'll go away. But then when that time comes, like for it to continue, you don't have to change it. Everything's wonderful and fine. But if it doesn't continue, then all these horrible things are going to happen. So it's like this built-in marketing ploy that is, to me, if you found the private industry doing something similar, they'd probably be sued for it.
Well, and what happens is it puts government. Well, let me say this. I understand that government has limited resources, and so their resources are not dedicated to managing these things. And essentially, they're like a lot of our citizens who come to the taxpayers with their hand out, and they just want to add to the resources available to them. And I get that. And so when you ask them to solicit a continuation of a certain tax, it's an extra function that they don't necessarily, it's inconvenient for them to go about that process. But I guess, guess what? I was in sales for 30 years, and sales process is like that. You have to periodically go back to the customer and make sure the product is still meeting their needs. And if it's not, they need a different product.
Right. We're talking with Bob Titus. Are there any other lawmakers that are with you on this, or that you maybe not necessarily officially, but you're like, oh yeah, there's some others on board, or is this still so brand new you haven't had a chance?
Well, it's brand new, and so I'm waiting to get the finished product out of House drafting. Now we'll start pre-filing bills on December 1st, so I expect to have that out by then. Now this is a big bill, so I think drafting and drafting inherently is it's more partisan than it ought to be.
Sure.
And so they I hope they're not dragging their heels on that, but we'll get that out, and there will be a lot of really good conservative legislators who will sign on to this.
Well, it's nice to see legislation that is, I would consider this less government in the sense that, it's sunsetting of government taking our dollars and because almost all legislation, and there's so much of it that gets passed. It's like this race, who can do the most busy work possible and just be as much legislation. And then it's always, and it becomes a bragging point. Even a lot of times for Republicans that supposedly are for smaller government, like I filed this many bills. I'm like, yeah, to create a new this and a new that. And we don't need more of that. We need less of it, or something that is in the context of less government, like repealing stuff or pulling back the eternity of tax cuts or increases, rather.
Right. No, you're exactly right, Nick. And even among conservative legislators, they come to Jefferson City, and their idea is to pass programs to bring some money home to the district and do various things. And somehow they miss the connection that this is costing their own constituents money out of their pocket, and many of our neighbors cannot afford to do that anymore. And not only that, we have families, and the cost of living, just the chaos involved in making ends meet is onerous. And so we need to make sure the government is not in people's way.
And you had referenced this early on in the conversation, but someone had texted in asking on the 25-year limit, can cities go past that limit? And again, the way that legislation is currently written, the answer would be no.
No, they have to present that again to the voters.
Anything else we need to know on this, or?
Oh, not really.
Okay.
We're in an environment right now where the governor has made doing away with the income tax a priority, and I certainly hope that we can make good on that. And so in that environment, taxation all has to be reconsidered, and this is just right in line with that. And and as we go through the process of considering what toll we're going to take on the citizens of Missouri, we need to make sure that we're just not adding layer upon layer of hidden embedded taxes, and so that the people of Missouri get the break that they deserve.
This isn't anything to be addressed legislatively, but I always really encourage people to break out of this mindset that's been crafted, this choice that here's a thing that we want as a government entity, and here's a tax for it. So if you think this is a good idea, you must support the tax. And that is a false choice, because that suggests that there's nowhere else for them to get the money. And that government is run so efficiently, and every tax dollar is so efficient that in order to have this new thing that they want, you have to give us more money. And I just really work hard to help people break that mindset. And I know why that false choice is put there, because a lot of times the thing does sound great, and people may go, yeah, I think that is a good idea, but that doesn't mean that there isn't elsewhere to get the money with the resources that they already have. But like I said, that's not a legislative issue so much, but it's just something I always try to encourage people
I
to
agree
think
with
about.
the concept. I mean, honestly, when we add a new tax, it's like getting a new credit card, and you have a new credit limit. And so, what happens is, all our government departments feel strapped right now because it's hard to live within their means, and they see all the needs that need to be addressed. And so when they get the new credit card, they spend every bit of it, and then they go back to needing more.
Yeah.
Well, every household in Missouri has to live within its limits, and if they don't, there's a real price to pay on these families, and it costs them opportunities to do better things. And so we need to make sure the government won't live within its means unless the citizens push the issue.
Well, I think government spending is like a closet. They say no matter how big your closet is, you're always going to fill it and think you could have more room.
Right.
And spending's the same way. You could double. You could have government come along and say, we need this much more. And I'll give you 10 times that. 10 years down the road, they'll say it's not enough.
Yeah.
Because they'll find ways to spend it, and then they'll find other things to spend money on that they don't yet have.
Well,
Excuse me.
Well, it's true of individuals. It's true of government.
Absolutely,
living in your means is kind of boring, and so your lifestyle grows beyond that in many cases, and it just takes discipline to keep that in. And government's not going to come by discipline on its own. Now, don't get me wrong. I think in Southwest Missouri we have very conservative governments, but it's just the nature of government that it. It's just the nature of government that bleeds into things that it doesn't need to.
Bob Titus, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And I would tell you happy Thanksgiving, but you already had yours. So.
Oh, no, I'll have a happy one.
Okay,
anyway.
all right.
Yes,
well, excellent.
We're going to keep this thing going.
All right, sounds good, sir. Appreciate it. I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see patchy fog in the morning, otherwise partly sunny skies with a high near 68. Tonight, an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 55. For your Thursday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And taking a look at Friday, an 80% chance of showers with a high near 70. And the Pyramid Roofing Company gutter cleaning season, it is in full swing. If you recently cleaned your gutters and maybe you noticed some wear and tear on your roof, now is a good time to have your roof checked before we actually move into those winter months that lie ahead. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections because they get it. They understand that your home is one of the most expensive purchases that you'll make in your life, and you need to protect it the best you can. They're very upfront and honest about the work that needs to be done. They will let you know if, hey, you're all good to go, you're in the clear, or if it's time to go ahead and schedule a roof repair or roof replacement. If it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh and schedule that free roof inspection today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
6 congressional Democrats have put out a video, and each of the 6 have military background, and they are encouraging in the video, of which I'm going to play for you the audio, they are encouraging current members of the military to defy the orders of the commander-in-chief if they deem them to be, quote, illegal. Now, they don't define what illegal is. It's just if you don't like Trump and you're in the military, it's just essentially encouraging a military coup against the commander-in-chief. Here is the audio from that video.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly. Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy. Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer. Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
And the intelligence community.
who take risks each day to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk. This administration is pitting our uniformed military
And intelligence community professionals
against American citizens. Like us. You all swore an oath. Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law.
Or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
In the Army or Navy,
The Air Force.
your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution and who we are as Americans. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
All right, so these again, they are 6 elected Democrats who have identified themselves, then encouraging current members and being very specific, saying we are talking to you. And they are identifying the threat. They are reminding current members of the military that their job is to defend us, not just from foreign dangers, but from domestic dangers, and that those domestic dangers are here. They're connecting the dots here. And then saying it is your duty to do something about this. It is your duty to defy the orders of the enemy. Now, this is a standard messaging coming from Democrats in which what they are doing is encouraging something that is extremely dangerous for this country. But they will play cute and say, well, no, we're not saying anything that's not. I mean, all we're doing is reminding them that they don't have, this isn't about Trump. Oh, no, we're not encouraging. We're not talking about anything specific. This is basically just a public service announcement. That's all that this is, which, of course, is a clear lie. Can you imagine if 6 Republicans that were elected officials put something out like this when Biden was president of the United States? noting in the context that it's clear Biden isn't even in charge anyhow. I mean, the heads exploding. They probably would have been booted out of the Republican caucus by the Republicans. The media would have been talking about treason. The media would have noted that this was worse than January 6th, encouraging members of the military to defy the commander-in-chief. They would draw comparisons to Middle Eastern countries in which the military would suddenly turn on the president of the country or the king of the country and overthrow the government in a military coup. There would be all of these comparisons. It would be tied to Trump. This is how dictators take over. Instead of relying on the ballot box, instead of relying on the voters, they encourage people within the military to turn against the leader of the country. But because it's Democrats, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly legit. It's obvious to say they know what they're doing, but it feels necessary to point it out because they will be coy about this if they are forced to confront it. They will say, listen, nothing about they'll turn it around. Are you claiming that military members should do illegal things? Of course, they yesterday, before they released this video encouraging what's essentially a coup, if I had said, you think they've gone this far, wait till you'll see tomorrow. This is the tomorrow. And what will be next? What will they do next? These are individuals that have all but given up on legitimate elections. The Democrat Party has become so culturally corrupt, and the people who run it, their brains are so broken and authoritarian, elections to them are essentially irrelevant at this point. If you don't like something that the elected president of the United States is doing, you have some judge just overturn it. Even if the Supreme Court has already ruled that that judge has no jurisdiction to do such thing. If you don't want your opponent on the ballot, just take him off. We saw Democrats try this with Trump. Supreme Court, as divided as it is, unanimously told Democrats, yeah, you can't really do that. It didn't stop him from doing the same thing to RFK Jr., having him thrown off ballots where they thought that he would be a disadvantage to them, having Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, going to court, having her thrown off ballots. Cornel West, another left-wing individual that was on the ballot in a number of states, also a black person. They feared that he would be a draw against the Democrat ticket. They had him thrown off the ballot. Everywhere that they felt that an opponent might prevent them from winning, in quotes, an election, they throw off the ballot. Their own selection of Joe Biden to receive the nomination again, they overturned. And then when the people within the Democrat Party said, okay, well, at least we have the convention. I mean, I guess technically that's where we make that decision anyhow. The Democrat Party said, no, you know what? We're actually just going to do this over the phone. We'll have it all wrapped up for you. The convention will be just to have some pomp and circumstance around it. Then you add on to that now these Democrats that come out and they're using their military background in order to give them credibility on this issue, calling on members of the military who are currently serving to understand that they swore an oath. And that oath is to protect us from enemies foreign and domestic. And they go on to say, and the domestic enemy clearly is here. So the only thing they're not saying is Donald Trump's name. These are individuals that have clearly recognized, after numerous assassination attempts, not just from Donald Trump, but Trump-style voters, be they white people, be they Christians, be they ICE agents, and every single time, the person who carries out the act, Charlie Kirk, obviously another one, the verbiage that they use, whether it's in text messages or postings on social media or a manifesto, are the talking points of the Democrat Party. So they understand that their words are motivating people to kill political opposition. And do they decide, maybe we should pull back? They double it up. And now they are telling members of the military it is their sworn duty to defy Trump. Now, if confronted with this, again, they'll say, no, that's not what we're saying. I mean, we're just simply saying, are we inaccurate here? They're not supposed to carry out orders that are illegal. We're not stupid. They know what they're doing. It is incumbent upon the media to ask them for examples. First off, they open with claiming that the military is filled with people that Trump is using against other Americans, that Trump is using the military to suppress America. Can we have some examples of that? Now, I suppose they're talking about, and this is the irony of their using the foreign and domestic argument to defy Trump. I suppose they're talking about the domestic use to protect the citizens of some of these cities, like Washington, D.C. So suddenly the foreign and domestic component as a threat doesn't come into play. The domestic part doesn't, only when you're being encouraged to defy the commander-in-chief. That's when the domestic part comes into play. But so they even define through their actions, let's just look at this. They've already defined in their verbiage and actions what they're talking about when they say illegal actions, because they claim that the military being used in order to protect American citizens in cities from terrorist organizations like Trans de Aragua, Democrats argue that that is illegal. So you have these 6 elected Democrats that are telling our members of the military to defy orders to protect American citizens from terrorist organizations. That is what is going on here. And they would love nothing more. They would love nothing more than to see some sort of mass chaos within our military. They would love nothing more than to break our military. They already have such a distaste for it because it has shifted from this social experiment circus freak show that the Biden administration attempted to turn it into, and has instead shifted to one with an actual mission and meaning, which incidentally has resulted in record recruitment ever since. They hate Trump. They hate that Trump is seen as a success and respected across this nation. They hate the fact that Trump may have a legacy of making America safer. There is nothing better than for them to create a scenario in which our enemies see a U.S. military that is in such shambles, it won't even or can't even be counted upon to follow orders from the commander-in-chief. What do you think this says to a country like China, who is weighing whether or not to take on our U.S. military, or the potential of having to take on our U.S. military if they decide to invade Taiwan? To see members of Congress doing this sort of thing, what do you think it says to any of our enemies that fear the strength of our military? Not the strength simply because of the financial component, and of course the really cool toys that we have that are so advanced technologically, but the fact that the military follows commands. Because you can have all the toys in the world, but if you suddenly have a military filled with people, it's like, well, gosh, I don't agree with this. I think it's illegal because someone on social media said this was an illegal action, so I just don't have to do it. Look at what's going on right now when it comes to the narco terrorists that are shipping drugs into this country for the purpose of killing Americans. Let's make no mistake about it. The amount of drugs that these terrorists are bringing into this country does far more damage in a 6-month period of time in terms of death than the 9/11 terrorist attacks did. Think about that for a moment. You're talking about hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of Americans overdosing on these drugs versus the under 4,000 that died on 9/11. The terrorism and that's the whole purpose of those drugs. It's not financial. It's not money. China's not using that as some sort of revenue resource to prop up their regime. It is to destroy us from within. It is a slow walk terrorist attack that is killing off far more people than 9/11 could have ever dreamed of doing. And the Democrats are running around saying that's illegal. And fine, if you want to argue that, go through the legal system. You go to the courts. You try to stop the commander-in-chief from preventing those killer drugs from making it into this country. You go through the legal means. But what are they doing instead? They are telling members of the military to defy those orders. And they can't say that they aren't because they go on a television show and they use the term, these are illegal actions, and then they put out a PSA telling members of the military it is your duty to defy anything that is illegal that you are ordered to do. The enemies of this country, from those that run communist regimes to the narco-terrorists that are importing drugs, killing off hundreds of thousands of Americans, have no greater ally than the Democrat Party in this country. And now you have actual spokespersons, 6 of them, in Congress, in the Democrat Party, putting out a video, spreading the sort of propaganda our enemies could only pray for. But we'll be told, freedom of speech. So one of the areas of just coverage today that I didn't have time for, but listen through the rest of the day, I'm sure you're going to hear coverage, and it's this Saudi crown prince meeting with Donald Trump in the Oval Office. And, we had a reprieve of the Saudis are bad when Joe Biden was fist bumping with the guy and warmly embracing him. Suddenly it was fine once again to be allies with Saudi Arabia. But now that Trump is president and using a relationship with Saudi Arabia to actually benefit the United States. Talking like trillions of dollars of investment, private investment, things that are going to benefit us. We are now supposed to, go back to, oh no, we can't do anything with the Saudis. They're horrible. They execute journalists and so forth and so forth. And Trump, in true Trump fashion, told an ABC reporter essentially what a piece of trash she is and so forth. It's just true Trump fashion stuff. But she also brought up the families of 9/11 and how doing business with the Saudis is a spit in the face to those families. And the Saudi prince actually addressed that. And whether one agrees with his assessment or not, it is an interesting point. And his response was, bin Laden did that because he did not want the United States to have any influence with Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabia to have any sort of, kind or friendly relationship with the United States. So not doing business with one another would be giving bin Laden exactly what he wanted. Glenn Beck's coming up.